Greetings, YouTube. It should come as no surprise to anybody in America or the West in large, is that we treat the oppression of white people and the oppression of black people fundamentally different. I'm talking about an article I read here on Metafilter just recently. This is September. The Eldritch Energies of Whiteness is their title for it. The foundations of the presidency is the negation of Barack Obama's legacy. The Hesse quotes The Atlantic on 45 in the history of the denigration of blacks to shore up the social opposition of especially poorer whites. Indeed, the panic of white slavery lives on in our politics today. Black workers suffer because it was and is our lot. But when white workers suffer, something in nature has gone awry. As an opioid epidemic among mostly white people is greeted with calls for compassion and treatment, as all epidemics should be, while in crack epidemic among mostly black people is greeted with scorn and mandatory minimums. Sympathetic op-ed columns and articles are devoted to the plight of working class whites, while the life expectancy of plummets to levels that for blacks society has simply accepted as normal. White slavery is a sin, black slavery is natural. This dynamic serves as a very real purpose, the consistent awarding of grievances and moral high ground to the class of workers which, by the bonds of whiteness, stand closest to America's aristocratic class. Sorry about that. Now I'm going to borrow a quote from my favorite quote from LBJ. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him something to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. Which I think is very important to always keep in mind, because the politics of America have been for centuries now, if you're going to have 19th century into the 21st century, about making sure that poor white people feel superior to other ethnicities as a means of getting them to agree with the people in charge. Even though if the poor white people would ally themselves with minority groups, they could together gain control, wrest control from those in power. Divide and conquer, it's basic military tactics. And the power structures in America have been doing it for centuries. They're very good at it. There's someone else mentions in this that, for example, just athletes. White athletes are shown to have perseverance and grit, while black athletes are often said they have natural talents. So the dynamic is that the white athletes came by what they have because they deserve it. And the black athletes came by what they have just because it's nature. They didn't do anything. And that's the most casual, subtle kind of racism there is, because most people never even know what they're saying when they have that frame of reference, or that narrative is inside their skull. They're not thinking about the fact that, well, I'm being a racist, but you are. When you think that white people work hard for something and black people come by that same thing through natural talent and not having any effort exerted. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm the whitest white dude that ever walked out of White Town. We have to address the fact that the standards we have in America are completely different. And until we can look at that honestly and directly and talk about it, even amongst progressives who are just as scared as any other white person for the most part discussing race, we're just going to be doomed to keep repeating it and destroying black lives in the process.